Al Pacino plays the dynamic and vigorous Teamsters president Jimmy Hoffa in Martin Scorsese's gangster picture The Irishman. A huge chunk of the lengthy runtime of the film is dedicated to Hoffa's battles with the government during his court trials, including when a gun was pulled on him in the middle of a hearing, and of course, when he is eventually found guilty of jury tampering, attempted bribery, and fraud, and is sent to prison. There are some incredible stories about Jimmy Hoffa, and in particular the methods he and his team of expert lawyers used to ensure they would win their cases in court, which most of the time they did. Naturally, there's only so much of Hoffa's life The Irishman is able to include, so it misses out on many of the juicy details in Hoffa's time in the courts and in the run-up to his eventual incarceration. One such story is the incredible way Hoffa managed to squeeze himself out of a prison sentence when the McClellan Committee went after him. The committee was initially formed in 1957 with its main target the then Teamsters president Dave Beck. According to Walter Sheridan, a close associate of Bobby Kennedy, Hoffa apparently secretly gave Kennedy evidence of crimes that Beck had been involved in order to get him out of the way and thus grab the position of Teamsters president for himself. But that's a story for another day, as during the mid to late 50s, Hoffa managed to slip and squeeze himself out of several McClellan committee trials after he had become president. To paint the picture, Hoffa was obsessed with finding out the inner workings of the committee and what they knew about him. He was concerned about how much they knew about several illegal business ventures he had carried out. As such, in February 1957, Hoffa contacted a lawyer named John Cheasty who had a speciality in carrying out investigations. Hoffa told Cheasty that the McClellan Committee was hiring investigators, and if he took a job with the committee and secretly told Hoffa about what was going on in their investigations, Hoffa would pay him a great deal of cash every month. It's thought that the deal worked out was $2,000 a month for an entire year, which would total to $24,000. Hoffa even gave Cheasty a down payment of $1,000. However, due to his impatience, Hoffa had not carried out a competent background check on Cheasty, who it turned out was a patriotic American and an honest man, and he immediately reported Hoffa's scheme. Bobby Kennedy hired Cheasty at the committee at a salary of £5,000 a year, interestingly, and Cheasty set up a meeting with Hoffa, saying that he had documents that contained sensitive committee information and asked for another cash payment. Of course, the meeting was being recorded by the FBI, and when Hoffa showed up near the DuPont Circle in Washington and handed £2,000 in cash whilst taking the documents, FBI agents flooded the scene and he was immediately arrested on the spot. This is an actual photograph of Cheasty and Hoffa during the exchange, with Cheasty having slipped Hoffa the documents. Hoffa had been caught red-handed and, as Bobby Kennedy put it, who at the time was serving as chief counsel to the McClellan Committee, it was an airtight case. He even famously remarked to a reporter after being asked what he would do if Hoffa was acquitted in court, that he would jump off the Capitol, if that were to be the case. Come the arrival of the trial 4 months later in Washington, and the jury happened to be made up of 8 black people and 4 whites. Hoffa and his attorney, Edward Bennett Williams, struck only white jurors in the jury selection process, and he had a black female lawyer flown in from California to be a part of his counsel team. He also set up a newspaper aimed at the African American community called The Afro-American to run a piece that called Hoffa, and I quote, a champion of the Negro race, and in this piece contained a photo of Hoffa's legal team, which of course included the black lawyer who had come from California. A copy of this newspaper was then sent to the homes of each of the black jurors on Hoffa's trial. As if this wasn't enough to get the jury on his side, one of Hoffa's contacts in the criminal world, Chicago's Red Dorfman, arranged for the legendary African-American boxing champion Joe Louis to be flown from his home in Detroit all the way to Washington. When he arrived in court, he and Hoffa hugged in front of everyone to see as if they were old buddies, and Louis stayed in court and watched the trial for several days. Before the trial, the two men had never met. When Cheasty performed his testimony, Bennett Williams asked him if he had ever officially investigated the NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, a civil rights organization to advance justice for African Americans. Despite Cheasty denying this, Williams had planted the seed in the minds of the black jurors, and incredibly, as a result of the tricks and gamesmanship Hoffa and Williams had played, Hoffa was acquitted. And despite being caught red-handed during a sting operation in which there was photographic evidence of his crime, he got off scot-free. To add insult to injury, in a deliciously bold finishing touch, Edward Bennett Williams sent a wrapped box with a ribbon to Bobby Kennedy, and in it was a toy parachute, referencing, of course, Kennedy's promise to jump off the Capitol building if Hoffa won the trial. This incredible display of courtroom tactics were just some of the many dirty and dubious tricks Hoffa and his team of lawyers implemented in order to keep the Teamsters president out of prison. The information from this video comes from the book The Irishman is based off, Charles Brandt's I Heard You Paint Houses, for which I've included an Amazon link in the description below. If you want to hear more of Hoffa's legendary courtroom shenanigans, consider subscribing to the channel, and thanks for watching.